Hi, this is Bob Mould, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you. Hola, senors and senoritas. This is Chris Shiflett on Walking the Floor. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our big, crazy world. I was just reading in the paper this morning that President Trump's latest travel ban's already been shot down twice. So by the time this posts, there might be a third travel ban. Who knows? Let's just hope that he doesn't ban van tours or I'm really screwed. We're really screwed. It's going to get dicey. No van tours, no rock and roll. Okay, now I know lots of you people out there get really upset when I talk politics, but I just can't help it. So I want to encourage all of you listeners to go check out a wonderful new podcast that I've been listening to religiously for the last few weeks. It's called Intercepted, and it is hosted by a great journalist named Jeremy Scahill, and it is the real deal. It's like the best political podcast out there right now. So check it out. I can just hear the flood of comments on Twitter. How dare you talk politics from the luxury of your Malibu mansion? So I just want to point out that my mansion isn't in Malibu, okay? So I'll talk politics all I want. All right, people? And you can just mute your iPod when I do that. Is there a mute button on an iPod? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, let's get to some other stuff. Now, first things first, people, all you Seattle listeners, I want to let you know that when I roll through town on March 22nd, I am now doing 2 shows because the fine folks of Social Distortion have been cool enough to let us jump on the show that they're doing at the Showbox that night. So we're going to do a quick set at 8 o'clock over at the Showbox, and then we're gonna hustle our butts over to the Sunset Tavern, where we pushed the start times back just a little bit. Brian Whelan's gonna go on at 9:30, and I'm gonna try to get on by like 10:15, something like that. So the Sunset Tavern gig is going to be a little bit later. Hope that's not too much of an inconvenience for everybody, but we really couldn't pass up the opportunity to play with Social D. That's just going to be too much fun. And you know what? The Social D gig is sold out, so if you don't already have tickets to that, just come by the Sunset Tavern, and we'll show you like video clips of it from our phones. Okay? And it'll be just as good. It'll be like 2 shows in one. And that's just one night on this crazy tour that we're setting out for. This weekend, we're hitting the road, heading to Portland, Seattle, Spokane, it's Pappy and Harriet's, New York, Nashville. We're going to be all over the place. So check my newly relaunched website, chrisshiflettmusic.com, for all your details, ticket links. You can go on my Facebook page. There's like events, all that sort of stuff. And while you're doinking around on your computer, checking all that stuff, just get on over to iTunes and pre-order my record. Get yourself a bonus track. Record's coming out April 14th. It's called West Coast Town. So buy it, please. Come on. The van needs gas. We need gas, so we need pre-ordered records to pay for gas and hotel rooms and, Taco Bell. Oh, one last thing on that end. I think I'm going to be doing a record release little gig party thing over at Side One Dummy on Saturday, April 15th. I don't have all the deets for that yet, so just stay tuned, and I will let you know soon what's happening with that. Oh yeah, and don't forget, I'm also doing an in-store in Portland at Music Millennium, day of show. That's March 21st, 5 o'clock, Music Millennium. I'll be there signing posters, playing a couple tunes on the acoustic guitar, and just generally shooting the shit in Portland. All right, let's get on over to Zounds.com. The fine people at Zounds.com, the great thing about them is that they make gear affordable, because you can split your order over like 4, 6, 8, 12 monthly payments. They never charge interest, and they just make it easier than ever to afford the gear that you want. And while they're at it, it's free shipping. Check that out. Free shipping, and it's fast, man. 2-day shipping for free. And I just want you to know, on the personal front, every person you talk to at sounds.com is a real musician. Not a fake musician, a real musician. They're not pretending. So call 866-996-8637 or get your butt on over to zounds.com with 2 Z's. Zounds.com. Let's get to the interview. So I sat down for this conversation with Bob Mould right around this time last year. And although I've known Bob for quite a while through his work with Foos, and I've always found him to be really friendly and a good hang, easy to chat with, I've just never had the opportunity to sit down with him one-on-one like this and like really get into the weeds about how he got started in music and Hüsker Dü and sugar and songwriting and professional wrestling and all that good stuff. And we get into all that here today. Bob's one of the true gentlemen of rock and roll, and I think his songwriting has left a mark on just about every musician of my generation that ever listened to like punk rock or alternative music or whatever. So here we go. This is Bob Mould on Walking the Floor.
I was rented this car. I flew in and out of Burbank. I'm getting ready to head out there after we do this.
Oh, okay.
So I rented this car with an electric start thing. And I don't drive much anymore.
Yeah.
So like at 6 a.m. I get this call in the hotel room, like, your car's still running.
Oh my God.
So like I left the car running for like 6 hours last night.
I have done that so many times.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. I did that at the Forum. I took my kids to go see Kiss.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if I was just excited, and I jumped out of the car and I went into the gig, and then after the gig I kind of hung out for a little while, and then when I came back out, most of the people had already left, and there was my minivan just parked all alone at the Forum with the lights on and the engine running.
Oh no, but locked, right? So you remember to lock?
I know it wasn't locked.
Oh
no,
my
no,
God,
nothing.
Okay, so my car was locked.
Oh, that's good.
But like I got in a few hours sleep last night, and I hear the phone going. I'm like, surely nobody's trying to call, and then they're like, your car's running, it's getting hot.
Oh,
and I'm like, okay, so now I'm running down the hallway, like thinking the car's
in your
on
boxer
fire.
shorts, right? Yeah. Well, that's what I feel like. That's what rental cars are for when you're traveling, to just abuse.
Oh my God. So, anyways, but thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming and doing this. I know it's early and you have a
no.
flight to catch and everything, so I appreciate it.
No worries.
So you're about to put out a record. Are you gearing up for the whole cycle?
Yeah, I've got an album coming out called Patch the Sky.
I've listened to it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
out. It's just coming out, and me and Jason and John just finished some UK shows.
I was going to ask if you still had Narducci with you.
Yep. Jason
Nice.
and John are both. Narducci and Worcester are still on board, and we just did a UK tour, which was real fun. Did a bunch of club shows, and we also did the BBC Six Music Festival.
Oh, nice.
It's a great station. A lot of people that I know work there and stuff.
Yeah.
So we did that. Now the record, and getting ready for touring in April and May.
Nice.
Yeah.
Listening to your new record, it sounds like a band in a room live. Is that how you make your records?
We did a lot of tracking in the room
can
together
hear
this
it.
time. Yeah, we worked. The A Room at Electrical in Chicago.
Oh yeah, sure.
Steve Albini's place.
Yeah,
It's
cool.
pretty expansive.
Yeah, with those
big
killer
room.
brick walls.
Yeah, the killer brick walls.
Yeah.
So we did a thing where we set up two stations, where we set up like we were playing a show in the big room against the brick wall, and then we had a second recording kit isolated in that floater room.
Oh,
Then we had a bass rig in the little room, and so we could either record in the big room, or we could isolate, which we ended up doing a lot of, just to get we had better drum sound that way.
Did Albini produce it?
No. He showed up, he walked through for like 5 or 10 minutes to say hi.
You see him there with like his cat or whatever.
Yeah. Or poker night.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
But he walked in, so ever charming Steve walks in. I smell a hit, Hey, Steve. It's like, okay.
That's funny.
Yeah. He's a sweetheart.
Yeah, he is. You've made records. It's funny. I had it in mind that there was a point maybe in the 90s that you stopped making records for a while. But in getting ready to do this, I went and looked like at your discography. and was proven wrong. You've pretty much been making records like every year or two since 1983.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because you've made records, in the early days of sort of indie rock on indie labels, the indiest of indie labels,
Yep.
all the way up to major labels and then back into indie labels again. I think your new album's on Merge, right?
Yep.
Where did you feel the most sort of supported as an artist?
Well, I think where I had the most success and felt like I had the most freedom was at Rykodisc.
Oh, really?
And that was the early 90s, and that was the Sugar era. I had done, with Hüsker Dü, we had done indie, self-release, New Alliance, SST, 2 records on Warner Brothers, and then I had 2 solo albums with Virgin. And after those 2 major label experiences, I was like, I think I should probably go back to what I know.
Right.
And
was Rykodisc, or were they an indie label? I never understood quite where they sat in that.
Yeah, Ryko was an independently owned label. They had their offices in Salem, Massachusetts, and they used, various indie distributors and had licensing deals around the world. So it was a pretty big setup,
right?
As far as
they did those great reissued thing that collection. I think I still have it on clear vinyl of David Bowie.
Yeah,
some
Sound and Vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did a lot of the Zappa reissues, and so that was a big indie with proper marketing and really good distribution. So it was the best of all possible worlds.
Right.
It was, sometimes with majors you go into it knowing that sooner or later you're going to have to make small deals.
Right.
You're going to have to give up a little bit of your vision to get a little more success, and I think all artists should know that going in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, did you actually have those kind of experiences of turning in a record and being told, we don't hear a single, or, go record 10 more songs? Like, did that kind of stuff happen to you guys?
Well, with Hüsker Dü, the 2 records for Warner's, the first one, they left us completely alone. The second one, they left us completely alone. But after the second record, they were like, okay, now you got to get a real producer. These records, we can't get these played on the radio.
Right.
And, the band broke up before there was a third record for Warner, so it was a moot point. But it did come up, after 2 records of, recouping and doing really well and being in the black with the label, they wanted more still.
Right. And I'm wondering, like, at Rykodisc, like how, or Merge now, how do they get involved in how you make records?
No, it's pretty much I do the thing and I turn it in.
Right.
I'm pretty protective of the stuff until I get in the studio and work with the guys on it and see what they think, and we get something up and rolling. But I think with Mac, from Superchunk, who runs Merge, or is one of the heads of the label. I mean, he's got he knows my work and knows that, I'm going to turn in a record that's what they're expecting.
It's not going to be a polka record or whatever.
No craziness. So if I do it, I'll go somewhere else to put it out. But yeah.
I was struck listening to your latest record. There's kind of an amazing consistency in your songwriting where you sound like you. Through each era. Like, the songs on your new record wouldn't be out of place like on a Hüsker Dü or a Sugar record, even though you don't repeat yourself, but there's like this consistency to what you do. And I'm wondering, how has your songwriting process evolved over the years? Has it changed much since 1983?
Yeah, definitely. In the early days, it's all just adrenaline and testosterone and, living in a van for 2 years, and that, all that madness that goes into the process, you're just flailing with ideas, all the time.
That's a great way of putting it.
It's just you want to be heard, and then, I think what happened with Hüsker Dü is by 1986, people had heard the band and started forming critical opinions. This is what they do, and then, as a musician or any artist, you inevitably read your press, and you get self-conscious, and then people are trying to take my process apart, and then you start to get a little self-conscious maybe.
Right.
And as time went on, I think with the first 2 solo records, there was a big break, more acoustic based. And going back to Sugar was something familiar. The timing was right. 92. I mean, things had changed in the mainstream.
Sure.
And I think especially now with the last 5 years, our friend Dave Grohl, who, in the Disney Hall show, and I think, that tribute show, and all these people sort of singing my songs back at me. I think it gave me this opportunity to be myself and not feel like I had to reinvent myself all the time.
I mean, what was that like? That must have been crazy.
It was
the
great.
show at Disney Hall.
It was really, really.
How did that come together?
My manager got together with the people who run Disney Hall and book shows there, and they had been doing these Songs of the City series where they bring in a lot of musicians to do things, or they'd have these different theme shows. And they just organized had this idea with with my autobiography being out. They were like,
Right.
why don't we do this show? With Bob's
Songs of the
songbook.
City. We need something about Minneapolis.
Yes. Oh my God. It's cold, and then they fix the roads, and then it's cold, and then they fix the roads. We have 2 seasons up there that I remember: winter and road construction.
Right. Right.
But it's so that show was really amazing, and I think it just it made me realize that I have this style. I have a pretty small toolbox. I don't have a lot of gigantic techniques and colors, and I have these things that I think I do really well with a limited skill set. And at this point in my life, I'm not really pushing myself to learn all these incredible jazz articulation or whatever stuff. Right. I'm just sort of like, I do what I do, and when we do it live, people seem to respond well.
But like, you've been going to the well for a long time. I mean, you've got in the music business, that's a long career since 1983. Yeah. I'm wondering, like, I guess where the inspiration comes from, or maybe more specifically, what is your process? Like, let's drill down on your process.
Well, I mean, when I get into the writing mode, I get very disciplined. It's like, get up in the morning, have breakfast, don't get distracted, go to work while things are still fresh in my mind. Things from the sleep state, things from just that, early morning, when you have, my life is pretty uncluttered.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of free space in my head, and that's the best time to get to work.
Oh, I agree.
Some days it'll be 16 bars of crap. And, on good days, I realize it quickly and go, okay, today's a good day to go to the museum.
Right.
Today's a good day to go for a long walk.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And then there's those days where the first 16 bars are, this majestic noise that you didn't know was going to happen. And then 12 hours later, you realize that you haven't had anything to eat all day besides a bowl of oatmeal. And you're like, oh, I should stop now and listen maybe.
Are you the type of person that just writes all the time, and then when you have, 10 or 15 songs, you make an album? Or are you like, I got to make an album, I got to go woodshed 12 great songs?
The most recent record was 6 months of woodshedding, 50 plus songs, 50
plus songs.
50 plus music ideas,
right.
Lots of stray words. And then, I've learned as I get older not to waste my words when I'm writing.
Right.
I think if I just wrote everything all the time, it would be hard to tell what's going on.
Yeah.
So, I'll get, with this record, within those 6 months, 50 plus music ideas. A lot of them were words and music together. The good ones, the tent poles, the beginning, the end, the things in the middle that hold it together.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of building the arc and seeing how the story is developing. So it's I look at them, they're all concept records to me.
Right.
They don't all have to be, it's a blind kid with a pinball machine, but they do have.
But to do that once is great.
To do that once, you change the world.
So. Yeah, that's funny. Let's go back to when you were a kid. Like, what did you grow up listening to? What got you into music?
Mid 60s pop.
Right.
I was born in 1960, and in my preteen years, my dad would go and buy used jukebox singles from the vending company in the small farm town that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
So it would be, Beatles, Beach Boys, Hollies, the Byrds, Mamas and Papas.
Tommy James.
Yeah, everything like that. All the roulette stuff, just amazing,
Cool.
Motown stuff. And
that makes so much sense with your music.
Gimmicky trucker songs.
Really?
Give me 40 acres and I'll turn this rig around. Because I think the only jukebox was in the diner where all the truckers went by.
Right. Wait, so where did you grow up? Did you not grow up
in the Adirondacks?
Oh, okay.
A small town in northern New York State called a town called Malone. Oh. It's basically right between Lake Placid and Montreal.
Oh, okay. So I thought you were born and raised in Minneapolis just because you're so associated with that
Yeah,
city.
I moved there when I was 17 to go to college, but
And had you played in bands before then?
I was writing songs when I was 9, like on
Really?
plastic organ, and then I picked up guitar when I was 15 and started mimicking things that I liked.
Yeah.
And then heard the Ramones and went, "Oh, I could be serious about this."
Right. And so what were your early bands? Like, what were your first attempts at forming bands? Or was your first band Hüsker Dü?
First real band was Hüsker Dü. I mean, I had friends that I would get together with and play music, but never like a band. You know,
Right,
I mean,
playing
me and
gigs.
another kid played a talent show in grade school, but I don't really call that a band.
Right.
But I mean,
That was, by the way, my first gig ever. Was my 9th grade talent show.
oh wow,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I loved it.
Worked out well. But yeah, I mean, it was those early singles. It was, my grandmother used to babysit me when she was working for this disabled woman, and the woman had a piano in her house, and I would put the AM radio on the piano, and that's sort of how I learned theory. It was just mimicking, radio pop music.
Right.
Hear it, and then I could play it.
Right. So you're just like self-taught, kind of
Yeah.
worked it out. Oh, that's cool. How did Hüsker Dü wind up getting together?
When I was trying to get out of the Adirondacks and get an education and get away, because there was no real opportunities there for me. I got a scholarship to go to St. Paul, Minnesota, to McAllister College, which is a small liberal arts school in St. Paul. And within a few months of being there, met Grant Hart, the drummer from Husker Dü, and the other songwriter. And he knew a fellow named Greg Norton who worked at another record store. So we just started hanging out and
Like-minded individuals, that sort of thing?
Yeah, with more esoteric tastes in music, So we had, commonality there, and just started a band. And the first show was March of 79.
Oh, really?
Yes, I mean, it's way back.
Wow. I mean, that was like not long after punk rock had really been invented. I mean, were you listening to all those bands, like all the English stuff and the
Yeah,
New
in
York
high
stuff?
school, yeah, definitely was listening. Remember hearing the Sex Pistols for the first time, seeing the Ramones in high school. Open for Iggy Pop, and just
Oh, really?
yeah, it was the Ramones were just incredible.
Right.
And I was listening to stuff, Aerosmith and Kiss and Foghat.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
all that the 70s hard rock stuff, which is great music too. But when I heard, the Ramones, and then and I went back and found the Dolls. And I started hearing like the Buzzcocks and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just was like,
Oh, you're a fellow New York Dolls fan.
yes.
Oh, me
yeah.
too. Me too.
Oh man.
Can I ask you a really stupid question that you've probably answered 8 million times, and I've always wanted to ask in the years that I've known you, but I always was afraid to ask, but I'm just going to ask it now. What does Hüsker Dü mean?
Hüsker Dü means "do you remember?" and it's either Danish or Norwegian.
Oh, okay.
And if you go back to the 60s and 70s, there was a board game in America called Hüsker Dü.
Really?
And allegedly they got busted by the FCC for putting subliminal messages in their TV ads.
Oh, really? Is that real? Did they really do that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the commercials are on YouTube. So
What
people could
were
go
the
look at them.
messages like?
I don't know. Buy this game.
Right.
Oh,
So it wasn't more sinister, like be a communist.
No, I don't think it was that bad. So, and there's a huge Scandinavian population in Minnesota,
Right.
so it was sort of a cheeky,
Yeah.
accidental kind of name.
So how did you guys wind up getting a record deal and putting out records?
Well, we put out in Minneapolis at the time to try to set the landscape. There was, Twin Tone Records that just started up.
Right.
And they were the big independent label in town. And we, sent them a demo and they rejected it. And we were like, well, we'll show them. We'll start our own label. And, took out a loan, pressed up a single, and then started touring around the country and, trading it for...
Wait, you actually got a loan for that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, Grant's
That
mom...
must have been a very different era of banking.
Grant Hart's mother worked at a credit union.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, so...
Did you pay the loan back?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Wow.
Yeah, but we, just, put out a single, and then I think it might have been in Chicago in 81 we did a show, and the guys from Black Flag saw us. And they told Mike Watt, who had New Alliance Records, about the band. And we gave New Alliance a live recording that they put out.
Right.
And then I think, what did we do? Another single with them, and then we did a self-released album, and then started up with SST, and then did 4 records with them. So
Okay.
it was an interesting path.
Yeah.
A lot of DIY,
Right.
A lot of learning the business, from the basement up. So
I've always noticed that you tend to mix your vocals kind of low.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe less so nowadays, but in the earlier days, it seemed like your vocals were
Yep.
mixed sort of down into the soup a little bit.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Just like to draw people in, And, the words are very important and the melodies are key, but to me, it was the overall effect, of just that sort of snowstorm of sound coming at people.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you hear that, it's like a singer that's not confident about his voice. But you don't strike me as that being an issue for you.
I'm not crazy about my voice, but I don't bury it. I sort of set it back so that people have to fight and get into it. And it also, I always put lyrics with the records. So,
Right.
I don't,
They
in
can
this
figure
day,
it out if they want to.
yeah.
kind
And
of
in
thing.
this day and age, I guess they could go online if they don't buy a physical record. But,
Right. Don't you find that online, pretty much every time you look up somebody's lyrics, there's some key moments in there that are wrong?
I love it. I love it. And then I see great mistake. Like if I'm on the road and we have to learn a song real quick and I pull it up and there's like a horrible mistake, I'll just go, I got to sing it
Just
like
keep
that.
it. Yeah.
Like a Mondegreen, like a excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Funny.
hilarious.
Let's talk about touring. Mm-hmm. How has touring changed for you over the years?
Wow.
From the early 80s, which I imagine there was probably no network for alternative rock or punk rock bands, to now where it's such an established thing.
I forget, somebody said to me, you guys were out there laying railroad, weren't you? And I was like,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. And good that you were, considering that like your fan base was built in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the state of the record industry, that's where we all have to exist to make a living.
Yeah. Yeah, well, back in the early 80s, we would have venues that we either played in Minneapolis or literally built the rooms, hauled the PAs up and down the stairs every time we rented the rooms.
Did you carry a PA with you?
No, but I mean, back in Minneapolis, you throw these sort of punk rock DIY shows.
Right.
And what happens is in each town, there's bands that are building these quote unquote stages.
Right.
And you meet a band from Madison, you say, oh, can we play on your stage? And you come play on our stage. And then, DOA will come through. And then when we'd go to Vancouver and they'd be, oh, come play at our thing. So, and then they'd give us the, Jello Biafra's number or
Right.
Greg Sage's number or who,
So there was like a real camaraderie in the scene back
totally.
then.
I mean, we had no other way to be heard.
Right.
Because in that day and age, it was, famous bands in private jets doing arenas. And, when you're a little punk rock band, you're not going to get that.
Unattainable, yeah.
Yeah, it's very unattainable. So you build this network, and then you just keep passing the information on and on to other people, and that's how all that stuff started.
Was, on the local level, was there much interaction between you guys and the Replacements? I mean,
Yeah.
those sort of the... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were periods of time where Paul and I would hang out a little bit. There were
Did you ever write together?
We tried, yeah. It
Oh,
wasn't-
really?
Yeah, wasn't any good. No good at all. It was just we were goofing around. I don't think either one of us wanted to be serious. So.
Right, sure.
But we took the Replacements down to Chicago to do some punk rock shows with us, and I'm not sure they really dug that scene as much. I think they're more of a rock band. But,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, we saw each other around all the time. I mean, there's a friendly competition between the bands.
Right, of course. Yeah. Well, after Hüsker Dü, you made a couple of solo records and then put together Sugar.
Yep.
What did you miss about being in a band? What drew you back to that?
Well, I mean, I had been touring with a rhythm section for the 2 solo records.
Sure.
And then in 1991, I spent the whole year just doing tons of acoustic shows, touring, opening for Dinosaur Jr. in Holland, or
Right.
or doing these big festivals in Germany, with a 12-string. It was like felt like Richie Havens or something, or surrounded by Sonic Youth and Nirvana and
Right.
all these, all this noise, So, but people who I knew, so it was a funny time. And then going back to 92 with Sugar. Getting together with David Barbie, the bassist, and Malcolm Travis, the drummer, we got together to learn a bunch of songs I'd written to make another record. You know, for what to be determined. I didn't know. And within a couple of weeks of getting together, it was, you know, it just felt very familiar. You know, it was a sort of a low demand, low stress kind of thing, as opposed to, you know, the previous 2 records where it was more of the tour bussy kind of tour.
Right.
So to get together with some guys that were a little more punk rock, it felt like, oh, this could be a band. Let's try this like a band, you know, and that was really good. You know, I've always had, you know, musicians in and out, you know, rhythm sections and occasionally keyboard players for live presentation. I also do a lot of solo stuff, but, you know, the last 5 years, especially, I think with Jason and John, it really feels like a very tight unit.
Solid lineup.
Yeah, it feels like
keep
a band
this going for a while.
As long as we can. I mean, you know, Jason has, you know, a lot of things going on, you know, family, you know, his own career, job stuff. Yeah. And John is in, you know, so many different bands that he's, you know, Mountain Goats, Superchunk.
Right.
And, you know, the Sharpling and Worcester stuff. So, you know, it's, I'm always available. And then we try to build it around when everybody's available.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, well, before I go on that, this is another stupid question, probably. But I always wondered, was that first Sugar record a drum machine? Because I know you've made records with drum loops and stuff before.
No, it just...
The drums on that record are like perfect.
Oh, it's click track, and it took a while.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was just hammering it down to very... That's the kind of record I wanted that to be. It was a very, very exact record.
Right.
And
mission
Malcolm,
accomplished.
Yes, Malcolm was great with the click. You know, it was a lot of work for him. But once he got the feel, you know, once he got that feel, you know, the very mechanical feel, it was, you know, it sounded amazing.
Yeah. You know, what has prevented Hüsker Dü over the years from doing a reunion tour? I imagine you guys must get offered all the time.
No, not really.
Really? In this day and age of Coachella and things like that, they don't throw big numbers at you guys every year?
And well, I think they know that it wouldn't make a difference. It's you know, that was a real important band to me, and I think to a lot of people.
Right.
And I've seen, you know, I think musicians should do whatever they want to do. You know, if they want to reunite their old bands 20 years later, for whatever reason, that's great.
Right.
I'm not the kind of guy that's, you know, looks at that and makes judgment on it. People do what they do.
Yeah.
For me, the way that Hüsker Dü burned while it was hot, can't be duplicated.
Right. You only get that fire once.
You only get it once, and it was a great experience for the most part while it was happening. You know, the end was, you know, messy as they always are.
Sure.
But, no, I wanted to move forward after that, you know, and sort of take the songs that I like from that and just carry them with me.
Right.
You know, and ditto with the solo stuff and Sugar and the, you know, the in-between year stuff. You know, I carry all of it with me. But,
right.
But yeah, to try to duplicate it, I don't think would do it justice.
Sure.
So best left the way that the people who saw it remember it.
Right. Let's talk about professional wrestling.
No, okay.
Which I don't know if you've grown tired of talking about this subject yet, but I always wondered because, you know, for people that don't know, there was a time, in the late 90s, early 2000s?
Late 99, early 2000.
When you went and wrote for professional wrestling. Wrote the scripts?
I was a creative consultant, and I did a lot of sort of the management of production management right behind the curtain.
But I mean, how did that come? Were they like, Bob, we love your songs. Your lyrics are so great. Come work on wrestling. Like, I don't understand the correlation.
I did no music for them. That was the funny part. You know, that was one of my passions as a kid. Besides music, was pro wrestling. You know, a lot of kids, you know, follow baseball and memorize statistics and get all the cards and, you know, whatever. That was what I did with pro wrestling as a kid in the 60s and 70s. And I knew people who worked in the business, and, you know, through the 90s, I would sort of give them ideas. You know, they would say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I would just say, well, you know, as a fan, blah, 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 you know, and they were like, oh, that's really perceptive, you know, and so fast forward to September of 1999, a position opened up at World Championship Wrestling in Atlanta. And I had a friend who was working there, and he came into More Power and said, we want to bring you in as a consultant. So I ended up, traveling on the road with the guys and with the crew, and helping to format the scripts, helping to keep the show running on time, live. Sort of sending signals to the referee through a wireless earpiece in the ring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of crazy, real deep stuff. But the actual writing, the next Wednesday, Friday night at the Olympic Auditorium, John told us, I get my vision back on my eye. Freddie Blassie, I'm going to kill you. I didn't, write the words.
Right. Yeah, sure.
But would sit in on the writing meetings and try to come up with ideas and try to offer insight on continuity, But we did this 2 weeks ago. Does this really make sense?
Right.
So, I was the downer, for the creative guys, because they want to go crazy.
Sure.
With nonsensical stuff that didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks ago.
How's that going to work?
Yeah, how's that make sense next week?
You just mentioned the Olympic, and I know there was a lot of wrestling there. I don't know if you know, there's some folks making a documentary about the Olympic.
Oh, my gosh.
And they interviewed tons of the old wrestlers, and what's his name? The guy who was Gene LaBelle.
Gene.
Yeah,
Judo
I think
Gene.
his mom was the one that ran the Olympic.
Yep,
through
that
the
sounds
glory
right.
days. Yeah. Looks
Yeah,
like it's
Gene
gonna be
and Mike was the promoter during the big days in the the 70s with Blassie and Tolis and Mil Mascaras, Gordman and Goliath, Kenji Shibuya. Yeah, there was quite a roster. And
Did you guys? I mean, it eventually became like a venue for punk rock bands.
Yeah.
Did you guys play there?
Yep, played the Olympic in '82 with Black Flag and Black Flag, DOA, Adolescence, a bunch of bands on that show.
Oh, amazing! That's so cool, man. That's that pretty much covers everything I wanted to get to.
Cool.
What should we tell the people listening to this podcast about your plans for the year? Tour. Check your website.
Yeah, tour. BobMould.com. #BobMould. Facebook Bob Mould Music.
Nice.
April 20th in Madison. That's the first of 4 weeks of shows in the U.S. Then we take a little break for the summer. We've got some stuff hopefully coming up in the fall. New album, Patch the Sky. Everything's good.
I love it.
Come see it. Come buy shirts, buy tickets, put cheeks in seats, and
I'm sold.
Let's party. All right.
Thank you for coming and doing this first thing on a busy morning. I appreciate it.
It's really great.
Okay, so towards the end there, when he's talking about tour dates and stuff and getting ready to put his album out, it's a little confusing because bear in mind that was like a year ago when he was getting ready to put out Patch the Sky, and he had like tour dates planned, and so that's all in the past. So don't go like expecting that to be out there now on his website. But if you do go to his website, bobmould.com, there are some current tour dates coming up. So check that out. Bob Mould, he's such a giant of rock and roll. He's got 2 Twitter accounts, @BobMouldMusic and @BobMould. So go see what he's doing and listen to his records and buy his concert tickets and do all that stuff, man. Support the scene, bro. This is Chris Shiflett signing off once again for Walking the Floor. So next time you hear from me, I'll be out on the road, hitting the highway, taking the music to the people. But that's it for this week. Adios, amigos!